it funny how a bit of good news just before you do something like this really kind of puts you in the mood? Welcome, everyone. It is episode 156. What's that now? This is officially, I've just realised this, there's 52 weeks in a year, and episode 156 is 3 times around the sun for this show. Woo! This is officially our 3rd anniversary, because we've not missed a show, have we? I don't think we've ever not done a show.
I've missed a few.
No, I think this is it. I think this is officially our 3rd birthday. How did I... episode 156. Welcome. It's our birthday. Hey, buy us a drink, get some cake. This is the Pro Synth Network live show. My name is Rob Puricelli. Pronounce that with a fruit pastel in your mouth while chewing it. And we are... and this is live. It's just gone 7 p.m. here in the UK. It's still daylight outside, although I had to shut that because it just messed with my light balances.
Shut it.
Like I really care about that sort of level of professionalism. Welcome, anyone. Anyway, to the show. I'm going to be talking a lot. We're all going to be talking a lot today because news has been thin on the ground, shall we say. But I think we've managed to rustle up some amazing co-hosts with us today who can talk the arse end of a pack of donkeys. So that's what we're hoping for the next 2 hours, that they will plug that gap. But we'll introduce those. You can hear them in the background, as you can a pack of donkeys. And we'll introduce those people in just a moment. Stop it. Right. Let's get all the boring stuff out of the way. First of all, can you please, if you do like the show or dislike the show, it doesn't really matter. Apparently, likes and dislikes are just engagement, and that's all we need. So if you like the show, press that like button. If you don't, then say so. And we actually would like to know if you don't like the show, because if we need to improve, we won't. Could you also comment throughout the show? You can do that through the chat, or you can do it after the show in the comment section below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ding the bell to make sure you get notifications. And please do share us around. We're quite easy like that. Just put the link out there and let everybody know that they can waste 2 hours with a bunch of synth nerds on a Friday night for no cost whatsoever. Of course, if you want to donate to the show, you can do through the super chat and super stickers buttons in YouTube, and also you can donate to us via PayPal. There's the link on the screen. It's also in the description underneath the video here on YouTube. Don't forget, we also broadcast on Twitch, Facebook and Twitter, so if you want to watch us through those mediums, by all means do. All of your chat comments will come through to us. We might not be able to reply directly to all of you, but hey, we don't have all the whizzy technology to do that yet. Twitter, if you want to follow us at ProSynth Network, it's the same for Instagram. Of course, our main group is on Facebook, where you can join the gang. And, of course, right here on YouTube, which I guess is where most of you are. If you have a question tonight or an opinion to put across, just stick a big capital Q in the front of it. That way we can highlight it and stick it in the bucket to throw at our guests today. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 controversial topics that you might want to chip into throughout the next 2 hours. And I think that's pretty much it. That's all the boring stuff out of the way. So Ben, again, is still on his sabbatical. I think is that probably the best word for it, sabbatical or hiatus. I don't know. But he's safe, he's well, he's happy. He's just taken a little step back for a little while. We hope to have him back very soon. But, of course, I am, as always, joined by my great friend, synth tech extraordinaire. He's my friend, he's your friend, he's everybody's friend. It's Kent Spong.
Go away, don't want to know.
All right,
sorry. Happy birthday.
Yay! Prepared. That's what I like. That's what I like to see. How are you, sir?
I have every instrument to hand. That's what they say.
Rev 2
I'm fine, thank you. I'm here, perpendicular.
Perpendicular. There you go. How's the Rev 2? Because you were playing with it last night, and it was doing okay.
Yeah, I can't believe it works. It's unbelievable. All. Is it 3 notes? Is it a 3-note poly? I think it. Yeah. No, it's working. So, but I've got to work on it, so that should break it.
Okay. Well, yeah, fair enough.
Well, you open them up, it's the end of it.
Puff, in a puff of dust. Yes.
Well, yeah.
Jolly good, sir. Well, welcome, and good to have you along as always. Resplendent in uniform, which is always good.
Yeah, always represent.
Indeed. Now, we haven't seen this gentleman for a little while, much as our to our massive disadvantage, I think is probably the word. He is the author of a number of fine and exquisite synthesizer tomes for the Bukes brand. He's also an accomplished editor of magazines over the last 20-odd years. He's a commentator, orator. He's a nuclear physicist as well. It's Dr. Mike Metlay.
Yay!
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
No.
Turn the reverb up.
Stand back.
You have every instrument, huh, Spong?
Damn you, Metlay. Damn you.
I'm bereft. I have nothing here. Oh, what the hell is that? Sounds like the Clangers.
That is a nose flute.
I see. I always used to stick a recorder up my nose.
No, that's a nose flute. I once did an improv as part of a planetarium show called "The Chrome-Plated Nose Flute of Destiny."
Where's my penis filing when I need it?
Let's not go there.
Oh dear.
Hello, all you nice people in the computer. It's so good to see you all again. And Rob, thanks for asking me back.
No, thank you for answering the call at such short notice.
Oh no, it's fine. You know, I love being here, and my God, you know, people want to listen to me. Well, I'd like to think that people want to listen to me. I guess I'm delusional, Steve. But I'll be here for most of the show, folks. Yeah. I actually do have a family commitment in the middle, so I'm going to be going dark about halfway through, and I'll be back. That's a threat.
Cool stuff. And no, that we really appreciate. How have you been anyway? What have you been up to since last we spoke?
Well, first of all, I haven't had a chance to do this yet, so I want to raise a bevy to Dominic Hawken. I knew him much less well than you guys did, and I'm really very, very sorry about that. He was one of the shining lights. And so wherever you are, Dom, I hope you're having a big old laugh at our expense.
I hope so.
Other than that, I'm writing product manuals for a whole bunch of stuff I can't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Which has been fascinating. It's always fun when you get back to when your client says, "Is your draft of the manual done?" And I respond with, "Have you added any of the missing features in the firmware yet?" You know, yes, half the manual's done because this thing has half the functions. Yeah. And they're like, "Oh, let's go talk about that somewhere for a moment." And all of a sudden the deadline eases up.
Yeah.
The one new toy in my studio, which I haven't had a chance to enjoy very much, is I've gotten to the point now where I love the Hydrosynth so much that I went and got myself an Explorer, and just so that I can play live with it. Mm-hmm. And I've already found a bunch of things that they need to add in the new firmware, even though 2.0 has dropped. There's still a couple of things that mean old crotchety Dr. Mike would like. You know, and other than that, though, it's just been when you're your own boss, you don't get a vacation. And you don't get days off. So I will be at NAMM in 2 weeks. And if all goes well, I'll actually broadcast from the show floor at least a little bit. So you can at least see. Well, the most important thing, of course, is the color of the carpet.
Absolutely.
But then you can see the vast wasteland with the tumbleweeds rolling by and that sort of thing. That's something I'll talk about later in the show.
Yeah, cool stuff. Well, great to have you back, and thank you ever so much for answering the clarion call and coming to our aid at such short notice, and hopefully for the next few weeks as well. But we'll talk about that in just a moment. But before we do, let's meet our final guest stroke co-host. He was here last week. You loved him so much, we decided to ask him back. In fact, he never went away. He's been sat here, and he does whiff a little. Mr. Andrew Longhurst. How are you? Yes. In his Rastafarian lighted studio.
Happy birthday. Shaquila's brilliant.
Love you.
How are you?
Oh, just brilliant. Who was that man just done on there?
Crazy guy from Colorado.
He got physics. He's brilliant. He's very clever. Man, I love him. He blew snot in a nice thing out. There we go. That's better. We're
There we
back
go.
in the room.
How are you, sir?
I'm very
Inebriated.
good.
So drunk.
Single
he's
malt.
phasing
all
out of
good.
existence.
Yeah, all good here. I decided, I made an executive decision that I would never work evenings or weekends ever again. So I'm working after the show's finished, and I'm working this weekend. As Dr. Mike says, when you own your own business, as one or two of you may know, holidays are things other people have. So yeah, you just kind of get on with stuff. It's just so. But I have got here. Hang on. All right, it's chocolate.
It is chocolate.
I have got here a celebratory black cherry dark chocolate sweetie thing. So,
Nice.
okay.
Go on then. Oh, I hate that. Oh, there's nothing I hate more than I'm taking the headphones off.
And that's better than the Suzuki Omni Chord. So there we go. We're ready.
Heretic.
We're ready. We're ready to rock and roll.
Lovely.
Right, that's that subject taken care of.
Yes. Here we are, full house. Celebrity Squares. Here we are for the next. Well, we managed to waste 15 minutes on the introductions alone.
That's good.
Yeah, probably half the audience too.
Pad.
Yeah, pad. Yes, we've got to do a lot of that tonight because it really is. It has been a very quiet week, but as Mike alluded to earlier, we've got NAMM coming up in a few weeks' time. Then of course there's Super Booth in May, and show season is kind of well underway. So I guess a lot of companies may or may not be holding back stuff for those events. It does always tend to go a little quiet, and then it's just mayhem. But there has been a few little bits of news, and maybe we can dig into those in a bit more detail and depth over the next hour and 3/4. So if you have, like I said before, if you have an opinion, you're watching the show, you have an opinion or a question or a thought, then do post it into the chat in YouTube. Put a big capital Q in front of it so I can see it, and then I'll stick it into the bucket. And sitting in the bucket straight away, it's not a question, but it's a donation from Estardos. 20 quid. Thank you very much.
We'll
Happy
take
birthday.
it.
Yeah, thank you. It is. For those that have just joined the show late, we have.
Shame on you.
I did the calculations. We are episode 156 means that we are 3 years old. We started doing this. It was March of 2020, and here we are, 156 shows later, and we're still bluffing and.
Fake it till you make it.
Through. Yeah,
And the question therefore is, what can 4 senior grey-haired old
Speak for
men
yourself.
do with a 3-year-old?
Oh, stop.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. How bad is this going to go? How bad is this going to go?
Whoa.
Family
I thought I was bad.
Show,
God.
show,
Whoa,
show,
no.
Show.
No.
Oh dear. Right. Well, let's move swiftly along.
Indeed.
And let's go to something. So we somebody mentioned this earlier. Kind of stole the thunder, but here we go. This little beauty has Suzuki have announced that they are to reissue the Omnichord in celebration of the 70th anniversary of the company as a whole. This is Suzuki Music, of course. And the Omnichord, it holds, I think, a place of quite deep affection for those people that have played one and used it.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun. It's it's cool. The strip that you strum, or the strum strip, or whatever the technical thing is called, is an interesting device. And of course, it comes loaded with lots of preset rhythms and chord patterns, and it is just, it's one of those kind of family tools. Yes, it's fun. It's not. It wasn't ever designed to be a professional instrument.
It's so much fun. It really is.
But it's been adopted by many. Of course, most recently, a clip went viral. Zane Lowe for Apple Music interviewed Damon Albarn ahead of the Gorillaz' new album, and Damon has his Omnichord, which I believe was that one. It's that particular model there, which is the OM36, and basically the entire first single from Gorillaz, which was Clint Eastwood. was pretty much all based on the rhythm pattern rock one of one of those machines, and it's a lovely thing to listen to.
But does it have sunshine in a bag?
Apparently, but it's a weird thing. I borrowed one. My boss at a previous job had one. He said, "Oh, I've got this thing at home. It's a weird shaped thing. It looks a bit like a kidney, and it's coloured like a kidney because I think he had which one was it? Not that one. That one. It's kind of a sort of browny reddy sort of colour." And he said, "Is it worth anything?" I said, "What is it?" He said, "Oh, I'll bring it in." So he brings it in. I was like, "Oh, it's an Omni Chord," and he let me borrow it. And my intention was to sample the heck out of it, and never got around to do it. And then he demanded it back. I was like, "Oh, I'll buy it off him." No, he didn't want to sell it. Sadly, he's no longer with us, so I don't know what's happened to it. But yeah, interesting, fun thing, and it's being brought back. We don't know quite how, whether it's going to be a reproduction of one of the previous models or a combination of features and stuff. But first of all, I mean, I just wanted to know everyone's thoughts about the return of the Suzuki Omni Chord, made famous by lots of musicians. I think Eno used one. Bowie's definitely a fan of one. He did a brilliant version of America, Simon & Garfunkel's track, with just him cross-legged on a stage, playing it all on an Omni Chord. Thoughts on the reissue of this, first of all, anyone?
Well, first of all, Rob, can you scroll all the way down to the bottom to see if they have the one that yes, back it up, the Q chord. See, if they're going to bring one back, I'm hoping they'll bring that one back, because you can't see it from this angle, but it actually does have some gestural controls, and most importantly, you can wear it like a guitar.
Exactly, yes, because it has a kind of like a fretboard.
Yeah, it's no, and I actually, we reviewed it for the magazine. And it was quite a neat little thing, and it's got MIDI out.
Yeah, it was. Is that it says there 100 GM tones? I'm guessing that's general MIDI.
Yeah. It was just, I mean, listen, the sound engine has never been anything to write home about.
No,
I'm kind of hoping they redo the Q chord, and they put like a Zencore engine in it or something. Just like get out there on stage and freak the audience out, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I loved them. They're just so much fun. They encourage exploration, and anything in electronic music that encourages exploration is a good thing.
Absolutely. Andrew, any thoughts on the Omni Chord? Did you ever play one? Ever dabbled?
I mean, curiously, despite my earlier
outburst.
Yes,
that too.
as we talked about last week, the whole idea of articulation is what we've all wanted since we got into this, and I think the Omni Chord brings something very different to that. And I actually really like the strumming feature. I like the simplicity of it, and I know, you know, when I do mentoring with people, I say, look, there's any instrument, anything that makes the sound, you should be able to make a track or a song from. And the Omni Chord is one of those things that just cries out to be played. It's very tactile. The same model that Mike's got is one that I've played with as well. I'd love them to bring out an Omni Chord with a bit of aftertouch, with its own synth engine on. But even as it stands, I think it's a good thing. And as we said before, anything which allows you to articulate and to do something different than you would normally do on a keyboard or with a sequencer is a great thing. It's a really good thing.
Do you think that? I mean, I completely agree that if you're going to do it properly, it would be great if Suzuki put in a really cool synthesis engine, whatever it might be. But do you think maybe that's then taking away from the very thing that made the Omni Chord quite lovable? It was a little bit naff and a little bit crappy sounding, but in a good way.
Possibly. Well, I think that, porque no las dos, have a little switch, old Omni Chord mode and new Omni Chord mode. Yeah. I mean, even if all they do is leave a general MIDI engine in it, the general MIDI engines that are being put into workstations and stuff these days are just, they're impeccable. So why not? Yeah. I mean, the other alternative is to, if you really want to go crazy, just put a USB port on it and then have a front end software thing that'll let you do as much or as little as you want. Load the damn thing with Spitfire Oliver Arnold's libraries.
Yeah.
You know, Icelandic ambient Omni Chord new age stuff.
Or sampling, even just limited sampling to just be able to sample your voice doing whatever. That's the kind of, there's a few instruments out there that specifically aim at children and new starters in music, and
there's
that
a really neat
encourages exploration. Be really good, and that seems like a really good format. The Omnichord does actually seem like a really good format for that.
Yep. And there's, in fact, a Kickstarter going right now for a pair of children's gestural controllers that hook up to educational iPad software. The campaign's open right now. It's open until April 20th. And the two objects are called the Flubby and the Floop. And they actually look like kids' toys. They're bright plastic things, but one of them is 5 pressure-sensitive actuator buttons, and the other one is a breath controller with a joystick. And they're saying that if they can make 150% of their goal, they're going to add Bluetooth MIDI to them. And Roger Lynn says that he knows the young lady who's running the project. She actually had contributed some designs to a workshop that Roger was at Karma out at Stanford, and said that she's brilliant. So if they make these things, it's going to be great. And they're just the stupidest, cutest little things. And of course, one of the FAQs is, if you really give this thing to a kid, will it survive? And the answer is, oh yes, we kid tested them. I mean, yes, if you use it as a hammer to break other toys, it won't survive. But dropping it, throwing it across the room, kicking it, So
playing it in the bath, giving it to the fish.
Well, feeding.
I was going to say, Kent, do you? What are your thoughts on the Omnichord? Have you played one? Do you get many through the workshop?
I got 2.
Really?
Yeah, I got a key chord. I think I've got 2 key chords, but don't quote me on that one. I think it's a key chord and a different model.
Why did I not know this?
They're quirky. I like them. They go into that same category as. Do you remember the Klingon toilet seat?
The what? Sorry.
Oh yeah, the Klingon.
Yeah,
the Klingon toilet seat. Yeah, from the same from Genox. The people who made the octopus. Yeah, but I don't remember what the Klingon toilet seat was named. That was the small one.
I can never. Once the Klingon toilet seat got entered, that was it.
That was. I know exactly.
And it was the most bizarre, random sequence I've ever come across. But no, this thing, because you could strum it, it didn't matter that it sounded, a bit naff. Some of the sounds were a bit sort of like me. It doesn't really matter. It was again about the gesture and everything else. It's like. Like a really interesting controller again. So yeah, if they reissue this, you can pass MIDI out or whatever from it as well. Even if it's got a decent engine thrown in there for good measures as well, then so much the better. Yeah, let me know when they're available. I want to buy one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
I mean, it's one of those things that I don't believe they were that cheap back in the day. They weren't a toy.
They were several $100s back in, however, 1980s dollars. They were not cheap.
Nowadays, it's going to be fairly simple, I would have thought, to produce something that is comparable in terms of performance of an original Omnichord for not a lot of money. So there could be scope there to make it a little bit more something useful. Yeah. But yet still retain that that character, and not just in terms of the sound, but the user interface and the look of the things. It's always this weird looking thing.
Plus, you can use it as a racket if you're playing swing bat. I mean, it has so many different uses.
Multi-purpose.
Unbelievable. Yeah, frightening horses.
And it's great for levering off the large caps off of giant beer bottles as well.
Yeah. Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Or playing war.
So all we know at the moment is that Suzuki have announced that they're going to do this to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the company, the founding of Suzuki Musical Instruments, which I'm not entirely sure. Are they connected in any way to Suzuki motor manufacturing?
Almost assuredly.
Yeah, I tried riding one. It doesn't work, so probably not.
Stick a set of wheels on Omnichord.
I was late for work. Yeah.
Or build it into the fuel tank of a motorbike. Yeah, that'd be good. But yeah, so that's all we know at the moment. And it's coming soon. So they will update the page. And it's suzukimusic-global.com if you want to go there. I'm sure our wonderful admins in the chat will be posting the link for us shortly. But yeah, Suzuki Omnichord is coming back for the 21st century. Fantastic stuff. Talking of weird and cute little toys, we spoke about this thing a few, I can't remember, was it 1 or 2 weeks ago? But I just wanted to highlight the fact that this thing we spoke about before it went live on Kickstarter. And then it went live on Kickstarter 3 days ago. It's just been there for 3 days. And in that 3 days, the Chompy Club has smashed its target. Its target was $30,000 US. It is currently sitting at $1 million, 14,907.
Yeah, Roger Lynn is getting one. A lot of people are very, very interested in this thing.
I'm sat here thinking, a severe case of FOMO here, because what does everybody? I looked at this, thought, yeah, it's kind of cute, it's quaint, but it's 500 quid.
Yeah,
I could spend £500 on something a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll never catch on like the Teenage Engineering OP1. Does anybody even remember that thing?
There you go. But no, seriously, it's a cool thing. I like what it did. I showed the launch video to my daughter, and she said she listened to the voice. It's Tobias, I think is the guy's name, and she said, "I bet he's got a beard and a man bun," because it did have that kind of thing about it. But a beard sounds even better than a beard. A beard. But no, what a cute little thing, but amazing. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a Kickstarter go and smash its target so massively. $1 million in 3 days, or probably less than 3 days. You can get one from the Kickstarter page. It's $499 for the regular model, or you can pay $599. This is US, by the way. $599 for the limited edition pink model, and then there's a super bundle for $799. The super early bird has all gone. And there are swag packs and all that sort of thing. But there's Tobias with Chelsea, apparently. So there you go. But if you want a Chompy Club, the Kickstarter's open for another 46 days. And
it'll be interesting to see where they end up at the end of the long tail. Yeah. By the way, I just posted the overall project is called Sound Explorer, and I just posted the link in the chat for people who'd like to go and look at the flubby and the floop.
Cool.
And who knows? Maybe we can even convince Rob to see if he can bring up that page later.
Flubby
much
and
later. Well, no, it's just get the link out of chat. It's called Sound Explorer.
Someone find that for me. If not, stick it in the private chat, and that'll be easy for me to get to.
Okay, well, I'll do that. I'll do that right now.
Do that too.
Boop, but there you go. You've got
lovely stuff. But I was just amazed at this thing. I mean, I think a lot of people. It was very polarizing. The Chompy Club. It was just like expensive hipster toy, or actually super cool, useful thing. And it seems that people have spoken with their wallets, and it is probably a super cool, useful hipster thing. But no, I'm sort of sat here thinking, well, maybe I should stump up 500 quid and have it. But
not there really yet. Sorry.
What do you think? Who do you think is the audience? Do you think it's
kids?
Again, do you think it's young people, or do you think it's parents? What? Us?
I don't know. I think it's probably a bit of both.
Yeah, it's kids and their parents. I mean, what you were talking about, Andrew, if it's engaging and it brings you in and makes you want to make music, that by definition is good.
And it's cheaper than an iPad. Which a lot of parents are giving to their children still, or phones. It's a musical instrument. That's a great thing. I know it's expensive. Hopefully it will come down. Who knows? But it's a good thing.
People who need therapy after using Electron user interfaces. Thank you, Steve. Steve Elbows, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go. There's Flubby and Floop. The controllers.
So that's the Floop right there.
Yeah.
And then there's the Flubby. So you have 5 pressure sensitive actuators, and then the Floop has a breath controller and a joystick, and they both have accelerometers in them. So, and they have educational games which come on the iPad, and they said that if they make 150%, they're going to add Bluetooth MIDI, so that you can actually look like even more of an idiot than you do already on stage.
How much are these?
Not much. The super early bird is like, I think $80.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you get both of them in a carry bag with all the software.
Yeah.
So
$79.
So
available at Love Honey. Yes. So
yeah, I must admit, I thought, is he got a Love Honey website or something? What the hell?
I'm tempted just because that's not $500, but that's just something, if nothing else, to encourage these people to keep going. That's one of the reasons why I buy as many iPad apps as I do. Even if I don't use them very much, or I don't use them at all after I try them, you're basically contributing a few dollars to somebody to keep developing new ideas.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted you guys to see this, because it's just like Bluetooth MIDI controllers. And, let's face it, Yamaha isn't building anything that cool.
Yeah, if it comes out as with a Bluetooth MIDI controller, I'm going to be getting it.
Well, the problem right now is they're sitting a little bit shy of where they need to be. And I'm afraid that a lot of people are holding back to see if they make 150 without them. So I might gamble. I might just go ahead and put my money in to see if we can get them over the top.
Do you know, I think I might just join you on that.
Because they're just so cute.
Anyway, so money, is it? So
it's not a huge amount of money, but the Chompy Club, I mean, somebody in the chat, I could go back going, he said, what, effects and home sampling, take my money.
Yeah.
They're, anyway.
Yeah. It's funny because we said for ages on this show, Ben and I were both sort of going on about a really decent handheld portable sampler that you could then create stuff with, just in your hands, no cords, nothing. And then we got things like the Sample Trek, which
I've got one in a box right behind me.
Great little unit. And now you've got Chompy Club, which looks like a toy, but actually you can do some really cool creative things with it. So
I've got an emulator one. Is that?
Oh, shut up!
Probably no. No.
Shut up.
No, they're. I love emulator ones. If I had room for it.
Well, technically, it doesn't exist. The emulator one. It's just
the
emulator. Yeah.
The emulator.
Like the First World War. When did they call the First World War the First World War?
It was just
Yeah, we're planning on another one.
Yeah. So there you go. First of all,
Synth Addict mentions the 1010 black box. You mean?
Oh yes, yeah. There you go.
Oh,
bing.
Yeah. All these cool little things. So Suzuki bringing back the Omni Chord. Chompy Club has literally smashed, obliterated its target, and Sound Explorer with the what's it called again? The flubby and the flute.
Yeah, but how many of them are people who just want to be able to restore their TR-909?
Ooh.
I've been them. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. I did think that. I saw it.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go. Some cool, interesting, and well worth funding things, I believe. So, fill your boots with that one. Right. Let's see. What have we? Oh, let's get controversial. Let's have a good old moan and a whinge and a get off my lawn. To the news this week that a certain software company.
Oh, excuse me, Rob. Rob,
yeah?
Excuse me for just one moment.
Sure.
All right, now, thank you.
He's done.
Yeah. Rough justice.
So
anyway,
there was a little bit of news earlier this week about a certain software company who regularly have all of their plugins for sale at like $29.99, yet never have them fully priced. Everything's always $29.99 in a sale. They decided to switch to the subscription-based model, but I don't think that's necessarily what upset a huge amount of people. It's the way they did it. And, of course, we are talking about Waves, who, 2 days later?
3.
3 days later. Pedaled it all the way back and said, okay, you can keep your perpetual licenses. But if you want to subscribe, you still can. So, have at it. But hugely embarrassing for the company. Massive furore online from Waves users and non-Waves users. I'm in that second bucket. I used to use them, gave up with them many years ago, and I'm quite glad that I didn't have to fall foul of this one. So software company goes to subscription model and balks it. We have kind of had that before, but anybody got any particular thoughts on the Waves debacle this week? Anybody a Waves user?
Yeah.
Yeah? So well, if you're a Waves user, let's go to you first, Longhurst. What did you think? What were your first thoughts, when they went to this subscription model and said, you can't have it this way anymore, you have to have it this way, and then not 3 days later, they turn around and say, sorry, we got it wrong.
Well, I think what's really interesting about it, and what I find sort of interesting about the whole thing, yes, they got it colossally wrong. They got it really. It's hard to imagine how you could get something more wrong.
You couldn't
really
get it more wrong. No.
They hadn't done any market research, or they hadn't looked at what anyone else had done. The subscription model does work for some people, but even Roland acknowledged you have to have at least some tip of the hat to lifetime,
yes,
to owned models. So they got it colossally wrong. I think they made a very poor attempt at humor to put it across as well. And yeah, hey, look, we've all been there. I did it earlier in the show, didn't work. But you kind of have to say sorry. If you're clever and you're smart, you say sorry quickly, and you do it with as much humility as you can. And I think they have.
Yes.
I think the fact that they put all of this in place and just did it without canvassing opinion, without asking their very wide ownership, numbers of people that own these things.
Excuse me.
Go on.
When the hell has Waves ever asked anything of their wide ownership?
Well, that's also one of the issues, right? I happen to also be involved in another. I happen to be involved in another Facebook group, which is to do with Adobe Premiere Pro. And for a very long time, as with all manufacturers, or rather developers of software, they got a lot of flack for going down the subscription-only model, but that was 10 years ago. And B, they get a lot of flack because people think they're not listening. Now, they've started to improve massively. Adobe really have started listening, and they're doing all sorts of stuff to engage with their users. But it's taken a real change of mind and heart, because guess what? Whilst you're growing and you're the king of the pile, as it were, the king of the hill doing what you do, you think you mistakenly think you can do anything.
Affinity.
But you can't. And in this case, on the other group, I have to say Adobe are doing a fantastic job now with Waves. I think they're learning they are having to learn that you can't do this stuff with impunity, and they're going to have to do a whole bunch of outreach, because they've made it very difficult to reset it to where it was. But they've got to.
Yeah. I mean,
so I'm giving them. I guess what I'm saying is I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt just for getting something colossally wrong. But I wish they'd discussed first. I wish they'd thought about it, because it affects so many people.
Yeah.
You have to wonder how much damage they've done to themselves because of this. I mean, it really, it is, barrel of gun to the foot, pull the trigger, and it's
because they've apologized. I'm not sure they have. I mean, they for 2-3 days they've done a huge amount.
Well, a lot of a lot of other companies. I mean, the press release that came out from PSP AudioWare in Poland was just like, the subject line had an emoji of a trident, and it said, "Tsunami, we're here to rescue you." And they put out discounts. A lot of the other companies were just saying, okay, low and slow over the plate, yeah, we can knock it out of the park, that's not a problem. So yeah, I think they've actually done themselves even, okay, look, Waves, there are people who live and die by Waves, a lot of them, and there are people who won't go near Waves, a lot of them. And the people who are really loyal are going to stick to it. But there's always that gray area where you're trying to pick up new user base, and they biffed that really, really pretty badly. And they're not the only ones. I mean, hell, I've been in this business for donkey's years, and I remember when Avid were just, Digidesign and then Avid were just, they were the cock of the walk. They could do whatever they wanted, they could charge whatever they wanted, and it just wasn't, if you wanted in, you got in, and if you didn't want in, you didn't. You were left outside. And UAD was like that for a long time, Universal Audio, and now they're just now starting to say, well, processors are powerful enough so that we can legitimately offer native versions of our plugins. But they at least they heard them knocking. And but this Waves thing, it was out of time, out of place, and tasteless.
And I think the measure will be what they do going forward from here on in, right? If they do actually start setting up some stuff to start listening, and it's not about discounts or whatever, although that would be wonderfly welcome, but it's not about that. And like with everything else, we've all been through various different doors. I've gone round and round in circles. I've got most of them, and I've come back recently again to Cubase or rather Nuendo. And you have to suffer the pain of having to relearn, but there comes a point, a critical mass, where you just go, whatever I'm using at the moment or whatever pain I'm having with everything else, I need to make that move. And that's where Waves are in peril. There are so many options out there now, so many really, really good options for the kinds of stuff they're doing. And you think, well, do I need it? Do I need it? But it's, I'll wait and see how they manage to either turn it around or not.
I thought it was interesting. We were talking to Ty Unwin last night, and he said, he's basically saying, it's not a bad deal. This new thing is not a bad deal because you pay, I think what did he say, Ken? It was like $10 more. $10 more. But you get everything.
For everything. It's just the way they worded it and the way they marked it.
If they had worded it differently, his opinion was that people, it wouldn't have been, as bitter a pill to swallow as many people had found it.
Well, I should also note that this didn't happen without warning. Both Waves and a lot of their distributors, like Zero G and Best Service, were saying, if you own these licenses, you've got to register by March 26th because there are big changes coming. And so this was not, the people who delete their mass emails are jumping up and down and saying that this came out of the blue. But I knew in January that they were going to be doing this. So, to some extent, I think it's a little fatuous to suddenly come up with this righteous indignation. I mean, it was a stupid damn thing to do, but it was not a surprise. If you owned a Waves perpetual license, you got at least 2 emails from Waves explaining that you needed to do this. And so in regards to the righteous anger, I'm less sympathetic. It was just on Waves side, it was just a stupid thing to do.
It was a really stupid. And you're gonna stay with Wave? If are you gonna carry on using Waves, Mike?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I don't own a single Waves license. Never have. Oh no. There are certain companies, for whatever reason, and a lot of them are due to the fact that my relationship with them was as a Pro Audio magazine editor. But there are certain companies that I just will not go near. And Waves is one of them. I worked with Waves for 23 years. And as a private citizen paying for my software, nope. I go with the very small companies, the ones that are always listening to their users, that are hungry. So groups like, by comparison to Waves, groups like GeForce or Bliss or PSP AudioWare, these wonderful little companies that are doing amazing things. And, I just did a blog entry about this in Music Player Network. You can't tell the difference in a mix. You can't. You cannot. I'll put money on it. And there are people doing imaginative, wonderful things. And Waves doesn't need my money. They don't. They're fine. They don't miss me. If they did, they'd send me a card. My birthday was a couple of weeks ago. I got nothing. So, no, I have no Waves and wouldn't anyway. So, sorry.
There you go.
And then there's people like, what's his name? Peter Emmanuel Roos with the Berlin studio, who released that wonderful reverb, which I've now got. It's a stunning thing. And it's one person just bashing away at it until they...
Jim Glue, Valhalla. I own everything Valhalla DSP makes. Use it all the time. Sorry. Back to you, Andrew.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Valhalla's good.
Yeah,
Valhalla's good. I happen
Sign
to like
Vibes as well. The Ukrainian guy who does great stuff. Yeah, absolutely. My personal, I don't own. Well, I guess somewhere I do own Wave stuff, but I uninstalled everything because I had trouble back in the day when I was just using Reason. When Reason started to allow VSTs into the platform, Waves never worked because there was this odd kind of wrapper around the software, or there was something that sat between the plugins and the DAW, and most DAWs got on with it fine. Reason didn't, and that's folks, Reason's fault.
Guys, I'm going dark. I'll be back as soon as I can.
Cool. See you soon. Safe journey.
Love
y'all. Ken, what about you?
What about me?
Hey. As an avid subscriber to software,
Waves not being one of them.
Well, yeah.
I think the head of marketing, at Waves,
is looking for a job.
Yeah, who pulled head together. He goes, I did it intentionally. I thought it was a brilliant idea at the time.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, great idea.
The best idea.
Yeah, perhaps there's a way of getting it into the blood through, I don't know, light or something. It's like it was a faux pas.
A massive faux pas.
Awful faux pas. The only thing they could do is sort of like backpedal. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and that's...
We'll have another crack next year.
Everybody makes mistakes. It's how you deal with them. And it does seem that Waves have dealt with it the best that they possibly can. There's no humble pie left on the tray. They've eaten it all. And they are just...
Yeah, they're going to have to go sort of like dark for a little while.
Yeah.
They're going to have to redo an awful lot or come up with some new plugins, because guess what? It's not the most exciting... For years, I used it probably like you, Rob, or others in the e-learning industry when I was involved. I still am sort of peripherally involved in that. That's one of the things which I used to rely upon was Waves to do a lot of the denoising and that kind of stuff. It was in the EQ, brilliant plugins, de-essing, all of that kind of stuff. Really, really good. The more exotic ones I didn't really ever use, and there are better plugins. To be honest, out there, and I've not seen anything from them in the last few years that would make me go, "Ooh, I've got to have that," because there are so many. As Mike was saying, there are so many boutique developers out there coming up with really, really stunningly good product that you just think, I'd rather support them.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I never saw anything from them that sort of like excited me enough to want to purchase anything from them. As you say. There was always something else that was like slightly cheaper, better I think in some ways.
It was probably the first big collection.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was the first big collection.
It's got a reputation that's built on not just the quality, but also the fact that they were one of the first and they've been around for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make them exempt from or immune to being making some faux pas. As I said, I used to have some. I can't say I ever really sort of used them that often. Most of the ones I had were either ones that I'd bought when they were like being offered at stupid, like $1.99 or something. I thought, I have that for a couple of bucks, or I got them free or whatever. But I gave up using them because they didn't work with Reason, and that's Reason's fault. That's not Wave's fault per se. But then when I moved into Logic some years ago, I thought, I can resurrect them and use. And I think at that point they'd upgraded, from whatever version of the platform to the one that was at the time, and they wanted me to pay again, but not just, you know, there was a fee involved, and I was like, why should I pay money for something I already own technically? Well, obviously with software you don't technically own it, but you know, why should I pay again? And then I looked at what I got and I thought, well, I've got stuff that does all that anyway, and I probably use that more. So it was just like, yeah, just remove it and get it off. And I think their software, the software manager wasn't playing very nicely, and so in the bin it went, and that's it. I never bothered. And as you say, now there's so much out there that is legitimately better or as good as, and is being made by people who just want to just sell plugins at a reasonable price to everyone. And you know, the likes of Valhalla and Sci Vibes and others, there's many others as well, have got that sort of wrapped up. So
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so it was a nice little bit of news this week, you know, for everybody to get sort of angry and self-righteous about, and then pipe down when they backpedaled, and then we all went, they backpedaled and we won, sort of thing. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, I mean, it could have gone by, and
yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, you know, a lot of people were getting very, very upset about it.
Yes.
And I had no idea there was VSTI Karens. But there you go.
It also shows the power of the consumer. And any company that takes that for granted.
Well, every company could be subject to the power of the consumer. Yeah, no matter how big they are.
And believing their own press.
Yes,
indeed. Yeah.
So we'll wait and see who's next. I'm kind of expecting something like this to happen potentially with Isotope, who makes some great stuff. But they
started to move. Yeah.
Yeah. They make great stuff. I use it, but I've been looking at the different versions. The last version I got was 9, and I was looking at the difference between version 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. There's only a few things in there that have really changed to any extent to make it worthwhile, you know. And in the meantime, I've spent that each, you know. You think, really?
Yeah, I got on board with 7, I think, and paid for 8, then paid for 9. And then when 10 came out, I was like, I was just like, it doesn't seem to be an awful lot there to warrant the upgrade price.
No.
And 9 does a really good job for what I need. So for the time being, I'll stick with it. I'm sure at some point, an imaginary gun will be held to my head to say you've got to move to this because we don't support it anymore or whatever. But
it'll be a bit like a keyboard manufacturer saying, now, all right, you've got the 76-note version of this. For another £2,000, you can have the 77-note version. Then you can have the 78-note version. It's got what?
I mean, I also appreciate these companies. You know, they're in business. They've got to make money. They've got to pay bills, and they've got to pay their staff who make the products that we love. But yeah, there are ways, and maybe this wasn't the best.
Yeah, but you get it from all sides, don't you? Because if it's not software companies saying, "Well, look, we're doing this now, so you're going to have to rebuy this because we're going to be doing this with it." If it isn't that, it's hardware. You know, it's like, oh yeah, our new OS doesn't support that, so you'll have to get this version of it, and whatever. Yeah. So there's a certain degree of manipulation on both sides all the time. It just depends on whether you really want to get antsy about it or not.
Hardware companies tend to get away with that sort of thing more. Like, for instance, I don't know, Yamaha, Modi X, and now you've got Modi X Plus. Well, there are going to be things for the Modi X Plus that you won't be able to do, that won't be supported on the originals. And do I have to go out now and buy a Modi X Plus to get those extra little things? But nobody quibbles about that because it's a piece of hardware and you make your choice.
Well, it's because it's always happened and nobody's would expect any differently.
But with software, there seems to be this, for many people, a preconception that you produce a piece of software and then that's it. There's no other costs involved. Well, of course there is. And they've got to keep people, buying stuff. And you either do that by just making more of different things, or upgrading and charging people for upgrades.
Going back to the thing I was saying earlier about Adobe, they got a lot of flack for moving to the subscription-based model. But the truth is, that was the making of them to become, much more professional. And the reason is that you're not buying new versions all the time. You're just getting upgrades. If you've got the subscription, you get the upgrades and the updates, and that means they're employing people and doing whatever they have to keep moving things forward. Sometimes they get it wrong, but generally they're making incremental or big leaps or whatever. And I think that's the thing. If you can show a model where it's not so painful to do, and you're getting as the end user a benefit of that, and you're keeping people employed, and it's the kind of stuff which it's very difficult for hardware manufacturers to do, other than by doing a new SKU of the same thing. I know a certain company that I used to work for that released an awful lot of sound modules that were identical-ish, just a different ROM and a different front panel color, but essentially, So it ties you down. Software does at least allow you to do that. And maybe Wave's thinking is exactly that. They want to grow and do a whole bunch of updates, and subscriptions is a way into that. But it's only if you've got the trust of people.
Exactly.
Mind you, to be fair to Adobe, at the time that they decided to go subscription, they released their latest Photoshop, and it was up on 70 million FTP servers by the end of the day, cracked.
Yeah.
And the subscription kind of got around that. Yeah. Well, eventually, after you get onto the next iteration and stuff like that.
The funny thing is, around about that time, an awful lot of software developers, manufacturer developers, big houses, kind of deliberately turned a blind eye to, or should we say enabled some of the cracking to happen, because guess what? It was understood that there would come a point where you needed to get the extra features or to do this. You wanted to move, and if you wanted that kind of support, you'd have to do that. So when that was always sort of an understood thing, but there does come a point where you're onto a zero-sum game and you're just not making enough to do it. So swapping over, and I think Steinberg did a really, really good job eventually, as did Adobe, at the point at which they switched over to software, online and whatever. They did a very good job in keeping the old version still current for a decent amount of time. And in fact, even now with Adobe, I think 6 is still available as code. You have to ask for it, but the CS6, which was the last of the hardware, put it on a disk and distribute it kind of thing, it's still kind of available.
Yeah. I mean, I use a tool at work, an e-learning authoring tool, and a few years ago they introduced a subscription model, and they said you can still have the perpetual license. So version 3 of this tool was there, and you could still buy that, and you'd still get updates to it. But there was the version that was the subscription version, same thing, except the subscription version would get more frequent updates, and those updates wouldn't come down to the perpetual licensed version for maybe a few months. So there was an incentive for you to move to the subscription version because you were getting cutting edge, but you could still stay with that thing. And then the subscription package also contained some other tools and other things that actually made it a very attractive proposition to have. And we resisted until about 3 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago, and we went full into the subscription, and we're happy, and we love it. And about 2 weeks ago, this company said we are ceasing support for the perpetual license version, also ceasing development, that's the right word, for the perpetual license version. However, we will still maintain support for it. We will still issue bug fixes if any exist, and we will still try and keep it as compatible as we can with operating systems as they go through the future. But do not expect any new things. It'll just be the tool as you have now. There's no development. And I thought that was a really well managed transition. I'm not a huge fan of subscriptions, even though I do have one or two, but they handled that really well, and we all had time to say, what do we do? Because we still had some perpetual licenses within the team, And we decided, no, actually, this is the point where if we're going to move forward, we need to be with the subscription model. It makes sense for us as a business. But thank you for the warning, and thank you for the time to allow us to come to that decision ourselves. So it can be done. It can be done really well. And obviously, some people weren't aware of how that could.
And one of the problems with anything to do with software, whether you're delivering hardware or software, instruments or plugs or whatever, or apps, is that sometimes things go awry with either the copyright or the license holders of a particular something, so that a technology which has always been accepted as being underpinning something that you're doing, like maybe Dolby, for instance, AC, suddenly for whatever reason, two or three people, two or three companies, which are a whole bunch of nested interests that supply each other with things, suddenly that all collapses because that agreement stopped. And it's a very difficult position to be in then. It's a very, very difficult position. I suppose, with hardware, it's a lot easier because you've got the version and it works, for as long as there's Kent that can rebuild it for you, then you're good. With software, it's slightly different, and when that support does drop, it's a difficult piece of ocean to navigate, shall we say?
Yeah. Well, I think lots of people learned lessons this week, and I hope Waves sort it out, because they've said at the moment is we're bringing back perpetual licenses. But they haven't said kind of how it's all going to work yet. So, or certainly not that I've seen. So I guess we just wait and see what happens. But there you go. Waves didn't bring in subscriptions, and then sort of brought them back a bit. Anyway, if you are a Waves customer and you have a comment, do let us know in the chat. Of course, you can also comment underneath the video if you're watching. Catch up. Hello to Dina Perlman, who was in the chat. I don't know if she's still there, but thank you for your birthday wishes. Of course, yes, we are technically 3 years old today by show numbers, and I don't think we've ever missed a show, have we? I don't know. I think because even if we didn't do a live show, we put a recording on. So this is
we're getting back to the turnip in a chair thing.
Turnip in a chair thing, yeah, absolutely. Which was almost going to happen today at Ben's request. So thank you for our birthday wishes. Thank you also to David Serchek for his wonderful $9.99 supporting our right for a man bun or not. And our friend and moderator in the chat, Andy Synth Addict, who was on Throughport Collective Wednesday, I think it was. Sorry, just store a thought there. He will be at NAMM for carpet cam and other cam duties. Hey.
But mostly carpet cam.
That's what we expect from him.
Yeah.
Sorry, just mentioning Throughport Collective there, of course, our one of our original founding members of the show, Chris Cynthian, does Throughport Collective. But I heard the other day through a mutual friend that Chris has gone to. It's a routine thing. Don't worry. He's had an operation. He's had something. His neck's been giving him jip for a long while. It's been affecting his arms and stuff. So I just wanted to put a shout out there to say, Chris, I don't know if you're watching or whatever, but all the best, mate. I hope everything went well. I think he went in for surgery a day or two ago. But all the best. And I think everyone will send you their best thoughts and wishes and for a speedy recovery. And I hope it does fix the old left. I think it was the left hand. I can't remember which one. Anyway, but yes. So that's that. And of course, you can go watch the Report Collective on their YouTube channel. I believe it's every Wednesday. It's for us in the UK. It's like 2 a.m. because it's it's a US centric show, which there needs to be more of, I think, because we expect our American friends to just jump on at 11 in the morning when they're probably at work and they should be doing other things. So there you go. Anyway, get well soon, Chris, and hope to hear back from you soon. Right, what should we do? Let's talk about this thing. Let's talk about an instrument. This is the new addition to the ever-increasing, wonderful, marvellous, and completely free of charge Labs collection. This is Vintage Keys. Vintage Keys, warm, gritty, and spirited electric piano. It's an undisputed classic, sampled from a rare Fender Rhodes Model 73. 4 timeless presets ranging from mellow and soulful to raspy and overdriven. That sounds a bit like me this week. Raspy and overdriven. Let's have a listen to, and a watch as well, of what this is all about. False endings in that video. Almost came back too soon, as is often said in this household. There is something about an electric piano, particularly a Rhodes, that it's certainly me anyway. It pushes a button, and it makes me feel all warm and gooey, and I love it. And that's not a bad way to get a decent. Well, there's only 4 patches in there, but it's free. A lot cheaper than other things that you can buy in terms of plugging into your door. I haven't had a chance to play with this because like everything's being packed away, and so there's just absolutely no point. And actually, in actual fact, I disconnected all my sample library drives just the other day. So if I download it, it's going to go. I don't know where to go. So has anybody had a try of this yet? Or yep. Go on then. You like your pianos. Go on.
I
then.
like me pianos.
You like your Joannas.
Yeah. No, I wanted this particular one because it has the correct bell tone for doing when I mess around doing sort of like Vangelis's China.
Yes.
Takeoffs. Yeah. So I stuck a 48EXL on the end of it and gave it a quick whiz up and down. Mm-hmm. And oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. I'll have some of that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Boogie. And yeah. Nice. And it's free. What's not to like?
Yeah, which is what we always say. Yeah,
it's great. It's great. It's great. Yeah. And you know, so when you know one of their bigger libraries comes out with some sort of like I don't know, some incredible articulation of solo cello or something for like £9 million. I go, yeah, I'll pay for that. I'm cool because you gave me all that lovely free stuff as well.
It's a clever business model, isn't it? Yeah.
It's pretty good. They go sort of like stroke, 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 slap, stroke, 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 slap, stroke, 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 slap.
That's what they should call their next library: stroke, stroke, stroke,
slap. Yeah.
Or just stroke, slap. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll probably end up on other websites as well. But indeed. Yeah, so yeah, it's beautifully sampled as always. Yeah, it's got that lovely, lovely early 70s tone to it. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to say that is negative about it at all.
Yeah.
There you go.
Indeed.
And you don't need contact to run it.
So. No, you don't.
Voila.
No, absolutely. Mr. Longhurst, are you a fan of Labs? Have you played with this one?
As it happens, yes. And I thought that was I hadn't seen this, but I'm just downloaded it now. It sounded fab. You're right, Rob. There's that lovely. It's a big warm cuddle, isn't it, when you hear that kind of Rhodes? And it has been extraordinarily well recorded. I just look forward to playing with it. The slap, the hug stroke slap is a very appropriate thing. But also curiously, it wasn't that many weeks ago that Spitfire had their own issues, having just had the waves thing. And I did see someone post about this saying, well, they're just trying to make up for what they did, but this has always been part of their business
this has
model.
Been going for a long time.
Regardless of anything else, they have fantastic libraries. And Kent's right. Occasionally, you kind of have to go, yeah, all right, I'm going to bite the bullet and buy this particular thing. It's just so good. You think, why can't I get all of it? Yeah. But yeah, no, it's a great sounding thing, and I'm going to be whacking that up later on and playing around with it. Definitely.
Indeed.
And the piano.
So if you're not boycotting Spitfire Labs, then labs.spitfireaudio.com, vintage keys. It's there. It's completely free of charge, and make of it what you will. So we're just waiting for Mr. Metlay to come back. He did say probably be about half an hour, so we're probably about 10 minutes away from his return.
How long does it take to load a body into a boot anyway?
I know, it's terrible, isn't it? But obviously I want him to come back because we want to talk about NAMM, which is obviously just a couple of weeks around the corner. And obviously NAMM was the granddaddy of them all in terms of the shows. What on earth? Did I miss something?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
So, in the meantime, I know I've been banging on about this for a while, every possible opportunity, but today was launch day for a particular instrument. You are now able to buy this direct from the manufacturer's website. Before we cover that, let's take a look at the brand new launch video for the Kadamo Mask 1, which came out this very day. And there you go. Kadamo, I'm told I had a conversation with Mr. Damo himself, and apparently the name originates in Italy. And it's a portmanteau of his name and one of the other guys in the company, Kadamo. And I said, how should I pronounce it? Because I don't want to be, I don't want to do the whole Moog Moog thing. And he said, well, you can pronounce it any way you like, really. And I thought, that's no help. Just like Dr. Bob, pronounce it any way you like. And he said, well, actually, in Italian, and he was right. The emphasis is always on the penultimate syllable, so it's Kadamo. So that's what we agreed on, and I'm trying my best now to say Kadamo, Kadamo, Kadamo. Mask 1 launched today. It's not a cheap thing. It's about 1,900 euros, about 2,200 US dollars. You can only get it now at the moment because of the sort of limited numbers of that have gone into production. You can only get it from Kadamo.org, but it is free worldwide shipping, I believe. And did I say it's got a wonderfully edited manual? It's really good. But look, I've had one a few weeks now, and I am slightly biased. I guess I can't. I've got to. Hands up, full disclosure. I've been playing one with a few weeks, and it is a lovely, lovely thing. And its synthesis method is different. You can get some really good. Get some really good sounds out of it, and I've always maintained this. The play modes are the things that really get me. I love a synthesizer that gives you degrees of extra expression, whether it's a ribbon, whether it's aftertouch, whether it's a combination of other things. And this thing with its intelligent keyboard, and it kind of it allows you to slur notes without having to touch anything else. It just knows intelligently where you're playing, and then applies the effect accordingly. It's really, really good. So Kent, you said you are getting more and more interested.
Yeah, do you know what? It's beginning to tickle me hither and thither. Yeah, it's like, ooh, that's there. And my issue at the moment is that my Osmos is half paid for and imminent. I mean, it's good if people who haven't put money down for their Osmos have this. Because there's a good thing about it coming out long before anybody's going to see a bloody Osmos around here anyway. Because I'm trying to figure out, can I get both? Should I get both? Unfortunately, I got the Osmos first, and I don't know. Once I've got the Osmos, are those articulations that it is offering going to be enough for me to go for a is it Kadamo?
Kadamo,
yeah. Because you said it's Italian. It's like Kadamo,
Well, they're actually a French company.
Yeah,
they're a French company, but they're based. They're sort of like east of Toulouse, so down in the south, so towards Italy. So I guess there's some sort of cross pollination going on there.
Yeah, because the whole Kadamo thing sounded more Japanese in a way. Konnichiwa, and all that sort of thing. But no, it's
just offended the whole nation.
Hey, they do the adverts with those girls in school uniforms. Like, yeah, all right, whatever.
That's incredibly convincing, I have to say.
Yeah, well, guess what I do in the evenings?
I don't want to know.
There's this special site. No,
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I look good in a skirt.
It's funny you should mention that because the cover of the wonderfully. I'm trying to move away from that. Stop before we get taken off air. The cover to the manual, which have I said how wonderfully edited it is, does use kanji here. They do have and something about the artwork as well. I mean, the artwork on the manual, you don't often get artwork on user manuals.
You don't often get hardware manuals.
You don't even, yes, indeed. And it's a very, very good manual. Have I said that before? Anyway, he's back.
Hello. Back. Bonjour.
So we'll come to
that
you
was
in just a moment,
interesting.
Mike. To
No, seriously. Colorado's on the edge of the Great Plains, and we've got 100-kilometer-an-hour winds.
Oh, wow.
Gusts outside right now. So welcome to Northern Colorado, home of the tumbleweed, tumble car, tumble bison.
Glad you made it back safe.
Anyway, so you got onto the Mask One, and
we did.
Wonderful.
We did, yeah. So Kent's seriously tempted. So let's come to you. If you're back, your thoughts on Kadamo's Mask One?
Twofold. Anytime somebody comes up with a new way of making sound, even if it's a variation on an older theme, I'm always Yeah, thanks, Mike. Tumble Metlay. Very funny. Anyway, anytime somebody comes up with a new way of making sound, it's always interesting to explore. The main thing I've noticed is there seems to be this sort of an arc that people go through when they look at videos on the Mask One or listen to it. It's like, oh God, I could never use that thing. The user interface is so horrible. Well, actually, watching people get around, I don't know. I'd be very interested in trying one. I have no idea when and where I'd ever get to do that. I'm kind of hoping they'll have one on display at Superbooth.
They won't.
And what?
They won't.
Oh, darn.
Yeah, I know. It's a bit of a bummer. They are going to be at Synthfest France.
Yeah.
Oh no. Or there's something else that's going on in France. I don't think it's Synthfest France. It might be something else. But no, they're a very small company with very limited budgets.
Yeah, I know.
I did offer that. Yeah, I said, well, I can take mine, but then of course I'm in the middle of moving houses. It's going to be in a box somewhere. So.
Yeah, I get that. But no, it's a very interesting looking thing. And by the way, previous conversation in chat was talking about the Osmos, and I've actually got one coming in probably sometime in May. And I'm pretty sure that I'll be moving it on to another buyer, just because the way that it interacts with the way I think I play, I don't think is going to be it's not going to be terribly right brain for me. So yeah, those are my thoughts. It looks intriguing because it's simple, and I'm really, really, really big on simple these days, mainly because I'm sort of simple myself. There's just, I haven't got time at this point in my life to go deep. The Hydrosynth is very deep, and it's all I've got headspace for. So anyway, but yeah, the Mask One looks really interesting, and I'd love to get my hands on one at some point, and I'm hoping I will, but we'll see.
Yeah. It is a very. I've fallen for it, and I don't really want to give it back, so I probably won't. But like you say, the interface. A lot of people have said that it's just a 4-digit LED screen. How am I going to? Trust me, you need to use it, and you will instantly get over that because it's not an issue.
You know what? Like Kent, I've warmed to it a lot, and I think the reason I've warmed to it is. The interface is simple. It's stupid simple. But underneath that interface, and it's not sort of lots and lots of nested menus and hidden away stuff, there's a lot you can do. And there are so many variations with each button that you can call up really quickly and play around with. You can get into madness. I've been watching, quite a few of the videos. That together with the articulation was really good. But I think it's that simplicity really, really appeals. And I'll tell you why. Rob, you'll understand this. When the DX7 came out, everyone got one because it had some what were then amazing sounds. Gosh, it sounds like a real horn. It sounds like a guitar, but it never sounded like a real piano. However, what was really interesting about it, I was never really that I used it from time to time in a MIDI setup, but I wasn't that driven by the DX7. It's only when I had some money and I saw the DX5, and immediately what struck me with the DX5, which I don't have here actually, was that it's got all of these knobs and not knobs. It's got all of these buttons, which gets you straight to the menu. You can kind of see what's going on. It was a very simple way to enter into FM, and it was a journey that's never stopped. I loved it because of that. I loved that I understood something that very few other people did, and I could create some really gorgeous analog sounds. Now, this reminds me of that. There are so few controls, but the controls that there are do so much, and the articulation is good. The sound coming off it is astonishing. There's two drawbacks. One is that video that you just showed had someone playing not the keys that were being played, which drives me nuts.
Yeah, well,
that to one side. It's the price.
Yeah,
at £1,908 or whatever it is.
Yep.
Is it enough? And the only way I'll know and I think I said this last week as well. The only way I'll know is it used to be that I'd hire stuff. I hired the everything that came out, the CS80s and the Oberheims and God knows when else, Polymoogs, when they first came out, to try and find out which ones I liked and which ones worked for my playing style, as Mike was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the interesting thing about this is I'm not sure I need an awful lot of headspace to understand the interface. I think where the headspace is going to come from with it is understanding just how powerful and how mad you can get with it, and how much you can articulate. I am really warming to it, I have to say. I am warming to it.
Well, the other thing, of course, is your right brain always gets involved at exactly the wrong moment.
Yes.
Your left brain is going, well, manualing system is a little bit, and MIDI isn't doing it, and the right brain is like, buy this. It sounds so good. Buy it now. And after a while, you learn to listen to that voice, because unless the interface really gets under your skin and makes you itch and you just can't stand it, the sound always does it. And when you get balanced right on that edge, that's when it sucks. I have owned and sold and rebought and sold 4 sequential profit VSs over the years, because I love the sound, and working with it was just, you just wanted to eat a gun. And finally I gave up, just because enough. But so the Mask One is interesting, because if you really can sort of get your head around how that very simple interface works, and it feels good to play, then you hope you've got $2,200 in your checking account, because you're doomed.
So Rob, you've been using this. How? Because with a lot of this stuff, it's the immediacy with which, when you're editing, the changes are happening, and how much that's it's interacting with how you're playing. There's that whole sort of thing that goes on. How are you finding it in terms of the whole interface and being able to author?
Well, he finds it very easily. He just has to look to the left.
If I had no sound effects, no. So it's a good point, and Stefan explained to me very early on that this synthesizer is designed for immediacy. It's designed for performance and playing and articulation, but it's still got a powerful sound engine. But he really wanted to make sure that it was easy to get results, good results. And so that's very much the point of it. And you look at that limited interface. I was talking about it last night with Kent. You hit the oscillator 1 button, and you get the first option is to choose which mask you want to use on the oscillator, because both the oscillators are sine waves, and you then apply a mask which then slices it up and rearranges it in a particular order to give you variations of that, and you can recreate sawtooths and triangles and pulses and squares and all sorts of different things, but it's everything else in between that you can get to. And it's simply, you press the button, you turn the knob until you hear something that you like, and then you press the button again, you go to the next stage of the oscillator, which I can't remember what it is, but there's about 6 steps on each one, and they're so clearly marked, even in that limited 4-digit display. Once you've got your head around some of the abbreviations, which doesn't take long, you're whizzing through. There's a kind of a shift button, so when you press shift and oscillator, you then get the envelope settings, and it's just A, D, S, R, boom, 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 and you just wheel it in, and it's very
that's
quick.
Not good.
No, it's actually yeah. I mean, it would be nice to have 4 separate faders to mess around with it, but it's pretty good. It works. So there's not many levels underneath each button, and what there is it been placed in a fairly intuitive way.
Rob?
Yeah.
What's the polyphony?
10 notes.
All right. I was wondering, because it would seem to me that bit masking would be relatively CPU efficient. And so, I'm surprised that it's only 10 actually. But
it's 10-note polyphonic. It's also 4 or 5-part multi-timbral, depending on what mode you're using. But,
fair enough. But I was just, that sounds like the sort of thing where you could really I don't know if you're trying to play a lot of sustain pedal and things like that. I would imagine you'd run into voice stealing, but maybe the playing technique doesn't lend itself to those big three-fisted.
I haven't, to be honest, I haven't noticed. But to address the sustain pedal thing, I packed mine away before this arrived, so I haven't tried it with the sustain pedal. However, the thing that really endears it to me is are the play modes. And the fact that you've got this articulation that I've never experienced on any other synthesizer, where you can choose this kind of slurring, or you can have a combination of monophonic and polyphonic articulations that can happen at the same time, and it's all dependent on which notes you play after the ones you've already played, and it's dependent on velocity or mod wheel or aftertouch. And you get some really cool effects that just happen very quickly and easily without any programming involved. You just choose the effect that you want, or the mode that you want. So it feels alive. It feels like there's more going on. It reminds me in a way of how I felt when I first, and you'll appreciate this, Mike, the Prophecy. Yep. The articulation on the Prophecy, even though it was a monophonic keyboard, you could be really expressive with that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I find with this.
Oh, wow. Well, now I am
maybe
doomed.
To a slightly different degree, but it was that instant kind of, oh, look at me, I can actually make pleasant articulations being sausage fingered. But
yeah, well, this is the thing that I'm finding interesting. I did a blog for Music Player Network not long ago, talking about the synthesizer solo, but it was the synthesizer solo. So basically asking, are there any synthesizers out there that aren't like these multi-timbral, build it all up in a sequencer workstations, where you would just sit down and play and love it, love the result? The CS80 was like that. To some extent, the Polymode was like that. I find the Hydrosynth like that. The Osmos is almost certainly going to be like that. And it sounds to me like the Mask One is something where you could go out on an empty stage with it and play it and not feel like you're really sort of, lacking anything.
Yeah, and that's really, again, Stefan wanted to make something that you could, use it as a performance tool and have that degree of expression and articulation. One of the things that I really warmed to very, very early on was the fact that it behaves, the connection between the keyboard and the sound engine behaves very much like an FM synthesizer, in that the velocity gives you a huge range of dynamic timbral shifting from hitting it soft to hitting it hard. There's it really does lend itself to that, even though it's not an FM synthesizer. It does have that about it. And I'm not a proficient player by any stretch of the imagination, but it really does feel under my fingers. It feels like it's alive. I can actually
just to again raise some history, as it were. I was looking at when we talked about the whole ability to be able to do mono and poly at the same time, and depending on what you were doing with the one hand, it would change from polyphonic to a legato mode, and it sort of rang some bells for me. Not bells, not alarm bells, but
DX7
bells. DX7 bells. I was going to say
pleasant memories, and I remembered that when we talked earlier about Emu doing all the modules when I was working for them, and we had the B3 came out. One of the big issues with the B3 module was coming up with the authentic percussiveness, because the percussion on the Hammonds was always monophonic, right? So you're playing a polyphonic thing, but you wanted that to get it to sound authentic. No matter what the sampling is, you've got to do something. So we built a new class of patch chords. So each of the EMU modules has 24 or 36 patch chords, depending on what you're doing, and they're all per voice. And then we built a set of preset patch chords on top of that sat on top of everything, which allowed you to, one of the things was this ability to trigger something as a monophonic sample, so that you got that click, that percussion from the B3. And what that led to was when we came to do the orchestral module, which was the Virtuoso 2000, which is still one of the most underrated modules ever made, I think. The ability to use that percussion to then control a whole swathe of other patch chords at the preset level allowed you to do pretty much exactly what this is doing, which is to have poly and then switched to legato modes depending on what your fingering was on the keyboard at the time, and it led to some extraordinary things. I've got some patches even now that I use I'd forgotten I use them all the time, and they've got that legato, monophonic legato within a polyphonic chord mode. It's astonishing. But I think the difference with this is this has got more. All of the modules are a pain in the ass to program, which is why I quite like the command stations. I've got one sitting here. What I like, I think, about the Mask is that it does all of that kind of stuff, but that they've thought about the immediacy of performance and articulation. And am I right in thinking, Robbie, that also the masks can be modulated in lots of different ways? So you can do sort of like wavetable scans, as it were, of waveforms. Is that right?
Don't think so. It's not
or pseudo wavetable things. I thought they described something.
No, I'm pretty sure it doesn't do that. I will. I'll get back to you on that one. Let me check, but I don't think it does. It's been a while since I wrote that wonderful manual. No, I didn't write that manual, sorry.
Did you write that manual?
I edited it.
Who knew?
I checked it for accuracy.
I know, news to me.
I know, quite. So I just wanted to, for those that haven't not familiar with this, what Andrew was just referring to there, this is a very short 30-second demonstration that Stefan put together of this kind of hybrid monophonic polyphonic mode. There you go. It's
wow, Tonto's expanding headband lives.
It's a pretty unique thing.
It's harking back, isn't it, to the keyboard controls that you used to have on the 4 and 8 voice Oberheims.
Yep.
The auto poly on the Pro 1, etc., etc. All those kind of... So, yeah, which kind of got forgotten about.
And the Buchla, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Very much so.
Yeah, the thing is, one place where this keyboard would excel is for the keyboardist who has maybe only 1 or 2 machines. Because, I mean, if you brought it in here and go, yes, from a sound point of view, that's close, that can, because there's hundreds of bloody things to choose from in here. So somebody who's got 1 or 2 machines and they're looking for a machine that can give them, articulation that they can mess around with, and really nice sound. I mean, it's at times it sounds so bloody analog. It's unreal.
That's what I said. That's what I said. It sounds like what you got on the first Tonto expanding headband album.
It gets ridiculously analog sounding when it wants to. Yeah, if you've got an Argonate already, then you might not be getting the full benefit of owning one of these unless you want the articulation on top.
But if all you're stuck with is a damn FM synth.
Yeah, but if you're in the corner with your DX100, you go, please, can I have one? So
sorry, Rob.
No, I'm not rising to it.
Very cheap shot.
He won't rise to it. It means getting out of his chair. So, here's the thing. For me personally, the fact that I have already, shall we say, half bought a Osmos, I would get one of these, but I would do that really, really boring thing of waiting for one to come up second hand. About 500 quid off what the guy had paid for it. And go, yeah, thanks, I'll have it now.
But then if you were playing live a lot, I think that's where this might have a lot of applicability. This with maybe a Hydra or something, or maybe the Osmos. But I think this would be one of those things for a live setup that would be irresistibly tempting to have in there, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If it aligns with your keyboard technique. then yeah.
You need technique.
Yeah, well, never mind.
Well, I'm still playing the black notes.
As they like to say in certain parts of Tennessee, I'll get me coat.
I'll get me coat. Nothing.
That's all right. Anyhow, no, I think the thing has a lot of potential, and
Absolutely.
And I want to hear. I guess what I want to hear is I want to hear it out in the field. I want to see what a whole bunch of different people do with it.
What I do want to see from it, though, is a software update that will quantize that looping sequencer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get where you're coming from.
It's reminiscent of the real-time sequencer, that they had in the Mirage. Where if you didn't hit the stop button right on the nose, that sequencer would not loop, and your drum machine's looking at you going, I don't know what you're doing. Yeah. I give up. I don't see the point of MIDI myself.
The looper is. I when I was messing around with it, I emailed Stefan and said, look, it would be great if you could overdub, because you can't currently overdub. It's just like you record, that's it, and you can play on top of it, but you can't build something. And I said that would be nice. I will mention this, the quantization, or at least locking it into something would be useful, because it's a 10,000 event, unlimited duration, single track at the moment, records notes, pitch bend, mod wheel, aftertouch, and sustain pedal. So it will. It's not a bad little thing, and I was sort of putting little bass lines together and then just playing over the top. But it would have been nice to build something a little bit more and then play over the top. But I don't know how much that would then eat into the polyphony and so on.
Well, it isn't the polyphony. It's how the hell do you do that on that user interface?
It's strangely quite
but
easy.
It's a single track, Rob.
Well, at the moment, yes, it's a single track.
And if they turn it into something, with a whole lot of gubbins, how the hell are you going to control it? A single track recorder is a very nice thing. I agree. And Sonic ZR76, right? Used to have the just a little pop the button and record MIDI, just MIDI sketches, and that was fine. And if that's all this is, that's great. But yeah, it would be nice if you could get it to loop on a MIDI sound pointer, or better yet, build an Ableton link, and then it'll take care of it for you.
Yeah.
There used to be a time, like when I was working in a lot of the studios, you'd have a relationship with one or other of the music dealers, right? And someone would turn up as you're just starting. They'd know you're doing a session, and they'd turn up. This happened with the MKS80. It happened with the JD800. Clearly, they were a Roland thing. It happened with a couple other things. And one of the guys just turned up one day. I was doing a session, and they said, "Here's the JD800." And I went, "What's that?" They said, "Well, I'll just leave it here. Just leave it." I said, "Well, what? Don't you want it back?" They said, "Yeah, you want, come and get it in a couple of weeks." And I'm like, okay. And of course, it never went away after that.
Well, of course, until it started dripping orange goo and the keys.
Yeah. Mine's sitting up in a loft.
But yeah, dealer reps used to do that.
That's what this instrument needs. It needs someone to advocate for it and get it out in front of people and say, try this out. And I'm not sure that that's happening. The current setup of musical, the large musical instrument companies is not really set up like that much anymore, and it needs to be walked around places so that people can play with it, I think. And if they want to walk it around here and leave it with me for 2, 3 weeks, 5 years, that would be good.
Well, and I gotta say, it in the 20 odd years, 20 very, very odd years that I was at the magazine, that happened. That when you were a product reviewer, you could get something in your hands for 4-6 weeks, and it was it could actually be a very handy thing. It certainly led to better reviews. You'd get people who were saying, well, why do you need it for 2 months? I mean, magazine X only needed it for a week. And it's like, well, yeah, and magazine X writes shitty reviews. What's your point? Yeah, that was one of the advantage. Well, if you want to call it an advantage, I didn't save much in the way of my money, of getting something sent to you and then, having the option of, well, do you guys really want this back? Now it's B stock.
But that was also getting away from that. That allowed you to experience it rather than listening to the marketing speak or to the speak of the engineers who would tell you technically what it could do. You'd have no sense as an artist what it could actually do. As someone, as a player or a companion, you didn't get a sense of it until you actually had it in front of you. And once you did, you'd either go, wow, yeah, I've got to have this, or not.
Yep,
exactly. But wow, I've got to have this, chewed up so much of my money over the years.
Yep. And I've sold most of the wow, I've got to have this stuff. Just because these days, that initial flush is always fun. But, if you're not, my rule came to be, if you haven't used it in a year and you don't see using it in the next month, it's time to think about whether you really need to keep it. And my Oberheim expander, I had it for 34 years. But when the time came, it went, because when you get to the point, Kent will understand this, they have certain things that go wrong on them. And, if you're afraid of turning on your expander because you don't know if there's going to be a dead segment in one of the vacuum fluorescent displays, or, a problem with one of the chips, or the front panel has finally shrunk enough so the buttons are sticky, it's time to let it go. It's time to thank it, Marie Kondo it, and find it a good home with somebody who can take care of it.
Mind you, all those things are replaceable now.
Now.
Yeah.
I sold it right before the pandemic hit. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, you can get the displays now.
Well, the other thing is, Ken, the nearest truly and Dave Surchek is in chat. He can confirm this. The nearest qualified tech that I would trust with a machine that cost more than $500 is at least 1,000 miles away from me. And it's just shipping it and then getting it back. That alone will add $500 to the cost of whatever repairs you have done. So it's just, Is
that because you live in Vietnam?
Yeah,
basically. NAMM was something you were going to talk about, I think.
Well, yes, I was going to try and...
When we get to that.
Yeah, well, let's do that now. I just want to say thanks for all your thoughts and everything. I've been just rereading through the manual, and I do believe that there is some way of modulating the masks in the way that you were suggesting, but it's maybe not in the same way. I need to investigate. Unfortunately... I can't do that live because I don't have anything to connect this into the stream, and it's going back in its box tomorrow, ready for Monday.
Rob, do you need us to buy you a 4-channel interface?
No, I've got one. It's just all packed up because I'm moving house. So
this is the not so pro synth network.
It's the amateur synth network.
Yeah, when he said packed up, he means put away as opposed to
sorry.
It don't work no more.
On this side of the puddle, packed up does not mean dead. But anyway.
Everything has been put into boxes, ready for transportation.
Yes, well, here's one for you, Rob. Do you know why the Fairlight CMI was popular among pirates? Because of page R.
Oh God.
Sorry. There had to be at least one of those, or it's not an official. It's not an official Dr. Mike on PSN show. Anyway,
and on that note, let's draw this show to a close with one last little topic to talk about, and that is of course NAMM 2023, which kicks off. I've got the dates here. Thursday, April 13th. Yep.
Yeah, it's a 3-day show, April 13th, 14th, 15th. And
what can you tell us, Mike?
Well, what I can tell you is that the scuttlebutt in the industry right now is very, very mixed signals. There are some people who are really, really glad that NAMM is back. But they seem to be vastly outnumbered by people who are saying, look, the one thing the pandemic really hammered into our skulls was that the economic model that NAMM was invented for is dead. Mm-hmm. Okay. My first NAMM show was 1997. That was really, the internet was email via modem. and you didn't send out information about products because you couldn't. You got an envelope when somebody launched a new synth. You got an envelope, a big A4 envelope in the mail that would have a printed press release, and paperclip to it would be a slide, a transparency that you would have to scan on your slide scanner to put into the magazine. And in those days, what you had was dealer reps who went around, and there were buyers. They went to the show to do business. They looked at the new stuff. They figured out what they were likely needing in their stores. And this was everybody from the big chains down to mom and pops. And they would sit there. You know, if you've never been to a NAMM show, a lot of the big companies' booths are actually two-story. Down below, there's the showcase. There's where people walk around and look and try stuff. But then there would be a staircase behind a velvet rope, which would go upstairs, and upstairs would be like an office. They would have cubicles, and they would have secretaries, and the buyers would come up and they'd talk business. It was a trade show. You didn't get on the floor. You didn't. It was impossible to get a ticket unless you were press or famous. But or had a friend who actually worked at one of the companies and had some kind of pull above the middle management level. That's what made them so special. You couldn't just walk into one. But nowadays, everything's done on the internet. Even the mom and pop stores are doing their research on the internet. People don't realize that you can pay for a tiny, tiny booth at NAMM. You can pay upwards of $25,000. Staying in Anaheim, that's $300 per night per employee, just for hotel space. And we're not talking the Marriott next door to the convention center. We're talking the Castle Inn up Catella, where you don't have to worry about catching a spill in the bathroom because all the floors are tilted. You know, and you know, Anaheim is nice enough. If you don't mind, you know, staggering home after the trade show, watching bunches of kids wearing Mickey Mouse ears and screaming, "I want it! I want it!" It's just, you know, numbers have fallen off. Roland's not going. The only reason Chord is there, Chord has a 20 by 10 foot booth. And the reason I believe, I could be wrong, but the reason I believe they're there is because NAMM position, where your booth is in the convention center, depends on precedence. The more years you have been a member of NAMM, the better a chance you have of getting a plum spot. And all you need is 1 year of missing the show, and you get pushed to the back of the queue. So there's no way Chord wasn't going to tell some of the people from their US division to grab some keyboards and so forth and set up a 20 by 10. Because the alternative is, if they want to come back with a 60 by 40 booth, they could end up in the wrong hall. So this kind of thing is really important. I'm going to be very interested to see what kind of numbers they get. One of the most recent, very interesting things is there's a gaming conference called E3.
Yes.
And the people who ran it just told the Los Angeles Convention Center, "We're sorry, but we can't." You know,
nobody was going, were they?
Nobody was going. And one of the things that I'm going to be very curious about is we were just starting to see the numbers drop at 2020, right before the pandemic hit. It was a lovely show, but numbers were down. You know, they peaked at almost 100,000, and I think 2020 they were in the low 90s, but I'd have to look it up. But since then, you know, they've had a terrible time bouncing back after the pandemic because the music industry was doing great. People wanted instruments at home, but they didn't need NAMM anymore. You could call up a rep. You could go to a private press website. You could pull down all the information you needed. And if they really needed to sell something to a buyer, they send a dealer in a car with the inventory in the back. You know, it's just not. And the fact that you now have, you know, Andertons and Sweetwater and God, I'm blanking on the name of the big one in Germany. Help me out here.
Thomann.
Come on. Thomann. And so you have these big chains that get almost everything. And they've thrown in this thing like, if you don't like it, we'll take it back. And so, Andrew, you're talking about your studio loan, and they've got no problem with it. It's no longer considered cheating. They just deal with it. Restocking is part of the cost of doing business. Restocking a bunch of guitars and keyboards. How many returned keyboards and guitars do you have to sell at B stock before you lose money equivalent to taking a team to NAMM?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. It's just a thing. And so it's who benefits from NAMM? I benefit from NAMM because NAMM is networking. I get clients at these trade shows, and when these trade shows go away, my making a living is going to be much harder.
Yeah. But I think we talked about this last week, and I came to much the same conclusions as you, Mike, which is that the era of the trade show, my first one was 99, so I was only a couple years after you.
Yeah.
And the trade show was about meeting dealers, and there were big dealers, small dealers from across the world. There were mom and pops, all of that stuff. The mom and pops thing has died.
Yep.
Pretty much, it's died.
And
because
the ones that
you can go on the internet and you can find the thing you've seen the reviews for, and you can buy it, but you're not trying it, right? You're not trying it. So the model's not adapted. Given that it used to be that trade shows were primarily for dealers, you'd have 2 or 3 days of dealer days, and then you'd have one day where the public was allowed in, and that was always the model. That's which dealers you're going to see. If you've not done the deal already, something's gone wrong. You do the deal via emails and a couple of Zoom calls or whatever.
And Dina Perlman, just brought up this question: do you think the smaller shows suffice for network? And Dina, I would argue that they do. Yeah. I think that when you have a really specialized when you have a really specialized type of product, it was really, really cool the first time all of the Eurorack manufacturers got together, pooled their money, and got a big booth at NAMM. That was cool. That was where you could walk around and you could see Make Noise and IntelliGel and so on and so on and so on. All of these great little manufacturers, and they were chock-a-block. They were bumping elbows, but it was there and it was interesting. And all of the, manufacturers of, the more traditional instruments were going, what the hell is going on back there? And why did they have a crowd 3 deep while our booth is empty? That was really the dawn of it all. But now, you have a lot of forums like this one. You have, actual bespoke stores like Perfect Circuit and Control Voltage. And even that's not really necessary. And those booths are expensive. And so, So
the smaller events, such as
events, exactly.
Those places are great because guess what? When you go there, you not only get to try stuff out and meet loads of people, but you're generally speaking also talking to the people that designed and built it and have an interest in it.
And yes,
that used to be what a lot of this thing was, but now that's the boutique builders and those boutique events are fantastic.
That's the way to go.
Really, really good.
And one of the guys who used to write, maybe he still does write for Recording. I haven't kept up on their current list of writers, but he was a wonderful old curmudgeon who I love dearly, who talked about how the AES convention, the Audio Engineering Society convention, was dying because back in the good old days, the only way you could talk to the engineer that designed this new tube microphone rather than some marketing shill was to come to the trade show floor at an AES convention, because the people manning the booths were the guys who designed the gear. Mm-hmm. And when AES tried to be a little NAMM, and all of those engineers, except for the very small companies, all those engineers vanished and were replaced by marketing mooks, the value of the AES show trade floor, as opposed to, the papers, just vanished. And Dina, I would argue that when you're talking about a synth only show and you're trying to target people who buy synths, speaking to the choir is not a bad thing. Having variety, yes, it's nice if you've got foot traffic of the right kind. AES is technically open to the public. You're supposed to be an AES member, but they have an invitation system where basically anybody who jumps through one low hoop can get in for free. So there is some advantage of that. And it takes place in, big cities where a lot of studios are. So you can get people in on the pro audio side of things. But for things like synthesizers, keyboards, that sort of thing, right now, and I don't think this is NDA stuff. I will say it cautiously. A work colleague spoke to someone involved with Synthplex. And the reason why the website hasn't yet been updated is because they're still trying to figure out a date, but they're going to do it again. They're really trying to do it again. And it's hopefully going to be in early 2024. But Synthplex understands the value of what they were trying to do. The logistics of the show was tricky last year. They were, and I think they'd admit it, they were scrambling a little bit, but it was a great show. The energy, the vibe was amazing. And you knew that whoever walked up to your booth was somebody who was interested and committed and curious. One of the things that people hate at NAMM is tire kickers. People who come over, poke at something, maybe even break it or steal it, and then walk away.
Yeah. I suppose the other thing with a lot of the shows is that after the 80s, keyboard players became the kind of the ghosts of the band. They were the people that were least regarded. So keyboards and synths became, as far as most people were concerned, they became sort of the least visible part of something. What's happened since, and especially since COVID, is that these shows have grown up and become much more vibrant, and suddenly people who understand and like synths have become a thing in and of themselves. It's become a very vibrant space again, which is fantastic. It's a really good thing.
Gentlemen, I'm going to have to wind things up.
Well, I've been winding you up all day.
I know. But we are over time, and I have my daughter to go and pick up from work.
And I've got both of my ladies to pick up from medical appointments.
It's been a fascinating. I was just really enjoyed listening to that, and thank you for all your input. Thank you, gentlemen, Mike and Andrew, especially because of the short notice, and thank you for jumping in. And
always glad to.
Thank you. And on that point, so next week and the week after, I'm not going to be able to do the show because of next week I'm moving house, and the week after I'm going to be just coming back from Italy. So I'm not going to be in any fit state. So Kent will be taking over the production duties.
At the hands of the lunatic.
He had a quick training session earlier today.
Went
so
for 3 minutes without swearing.
I heard that. I heard that training session.
And I do believe that Mike and Andrew are kind of like ready to come off the bench again to help us out, which would be great. And so
definitely here next week. And as I said, 2 weeks, you guys are going to get a chance to see the color of the carpet at NAMM.
Indeed. So I'll try and get something sorted out.
Kent, just so you know, I'm going to be running around the show, mainly doing work stuff, but keeping an eye open for synth things on Thursday. So I'll have a pretty good list of what I need to get back to. The problem is that the Anaheim Convention Center is about the size of a football field. And so if there's somebody in a little tiny but interesting company that wasn't able to get into keyboard land, I may have to, mute the mic and so forth and go running. Sure. But I'm planning on doing it. And Dina, yes, you owe me pizza. All right. And yes, everybody, click the like button. Click the like button. Please subscribe. Ring the bell.
Also, I need to say thank you to 2 other people. You're going to have to tell me how to pronounce this.
Thane.
Yeah.
It's Thane.
$20.
There's $20.
$20. There you go.
Thank you.
It's
3
easy
years
to
and
pronounce.
going strong. Oh, there you go. It's pronounced Thane MLH, by the way. I didn't see
Yes.
that. This is
Oh,
how
okay.
And by the way, MLH is Mike L. Hunter, who is this amazing synthesist from the northeastern United States who does
Why
a
do we not
lot
know
of
these
consulting work for EMIAP. He does a lot of work at the EMIAP museum in Philadelphia. His band name is Ombient, like ambient, but with an O, and his music is exquisite. Go find it on Bandcamp and love it. He's a wonderful, wonderful human being.
Well,
anyway, and he gave us $20.
Yep, thank you very much. And also to our friend BG Ollie. Thank you for your €5. Much appreciated. It's not a hamburger or a cheeseburger on his wall. It's a drum. Just want to clarify that.
It's a cheese drum.
And I still haven't opened that box of goodies that you sent me, but it will happen soon. I promise you.
John Simpson, top up the funds just a bit. Thank you very much for your £5.
Oh, did I miss one there?
Just now.
Come in.
Just now.
Thank you very much indeed. Of course, those funds go to help keep the show on air. And we will also...
Andrew Brooks, hurry up and bugger off. I need to go to bed.
Well, he's paying us to do it, so let's oblige. Thank you, Andrew. Much
everybody. Thank you again.
And thank you also to Andrew, to Synth Addict, and to Ben from Musines for moderating the chat, who do a fantastic
moderators,
job.
We love you guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you all so much.
We will be back same time as we begin our 4th trip around the sun as the Pro Synth Network. Episode 157 next week. Good luck, Kent. I've got faith.
And Robbie, good luck with your move and travel safely, yes, and come back safely.
Yes, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
On that note,
for some definition of the word fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Like
Bye-bye,
Take care,
everybody.
everyone. See you all soon, and have a fantastic weekend. Don't forget, Rands is back tomorrow, and then Jamie on Sunday. Yep. So don't forget, lots of shows across the weekend. Take care, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.